Hey guys, Darren Kelly, coach of Wise Ocean Pods, and welcome back to another episode of Trade Mode. Heading into round 13, can you believe it? The second half of the season is upon us. It's only going to be a downhill slope from here as teams start to become a lot more complete, and that only means we're going to have less and less variances in our team, and it means it's going to be pretty hard to make up some rankings in the very near future. But it is probably one of the easiest rounds for trading this week because it's the second week of the buys, and I think we understand how the buys work by now. It's been the same for probably the past decade. Honestly, I haven't been playing that long, but from my understanding, the buys have been around for a long period of time. This week is pretty straightforward, right? It's no surprise to hear that obviously we're trading people that have their buy coming up, and we're trading in players that have the buy just gone. So they no longer have the buy for the remainder of the season. And that's just due to simple maths, right? You think if you pick up, say, a port player who just had their buy, they average 100 for the next 12 games, which there is 12 games remaining. That's 1,200 points. Whereas if you picked up, say, an equivalent player that also averages about 100 points over their remaining games, they're only playing 11 games, so that's 100 points less overall. So you would actually need someone to go 10 points better, roughly, for the remainder of the season to be the same equivalent sort of worth in points overall. So that's probably a caveat for all my rankings across all the lines this week, is that I've factored in not really trading in any other positions, particularly for premiums. I think I'm a little bit more lenient when it comes to those sort of underpriced guys that are value a lot of the time. So I'm happy for people to jump on them. But general rule of thumb this week, you're targeting those guys that have just come off the buy. So please consider that this week. I know a lot of people are looking at some different options. It's not in my sort of philosophies with the way I go about things. I've set my buy structure up so that I'm now consistently moving on to these guys that just come off the buy. So yeah, I may shit on some trades here and there. So we'll see how we go. But that's enough really buy structure. I think we generally know what's going on this week. So let's get into the trade out targets this week. This video may be a bit of a quicker one. So yeah, please enjoy. So yeah, trade out targets this week. I will bring that up now. So my number one trade out target this week has to be Ryan Maric. The role has shifted on him, and now he's playing a bit more on the wing. While it is a bit of a nicer matchup this week against North Melbourne, I just don't like the fact that he has nearly 800k on his head. A huge break even of 104. I'd rather you jump off him now. He's got his buy coming up in round 15 anyway, so you might as well jump off now while he's still max price, and jump off to another player, which is an easy downgrade to maybe a Bergman if you're looking at him, or you're only spending a couple 100k to get up to those top dogs, which with two other trades is fairly simple. So I think Ryan Maric is the one that can go. Like I said, I think he's going to drop a huge amount of coin and potentially not even be in the side, with a few potential debutants coming into their team this weekend. So stay tuned for that. I'm sure we'll hear a little bit more about that tomorrow when teams get dropped. So be wary about that. If he does magically hold his spot, he's not taking kick-ins anymore. He's purely just out on the wing, so it could be very volatile. I still think he could put up, a 60, but yeah, I'm just not confident now that he was subbed last week, whether that's a bit of management or just, purely role based. I'd be concerned that he could drop another bad score. So I'd be more inclined to jump off of him if you can, especially because this week we have probably a pretty solid team where most people already have probably 18 solid scores on their field. So having a Ryan Maric here at 760k, potentially dropping a 60, just isn't really worthwhile. You're interested in holding him, so I think he's the one to jump off this week. So there is that. Luke Trainer is my number two. If you still held him last week, he is just falling so hard right now. He had the 21 last week and now the 31 on the weekend. So yeah, just putting up some terrible scores. He is dropping like a stone. 44k on the weekend. I think he's probably dropped closer to 100k in the last 2 weeks. So yeah, he's also one that, while he has over 500k on his head, could be an easy one to jump off of. Because he probably holds his spot. I don't see a reason why he wouldn't. Maybe Noel Bolter potentially drops him out, but not really the same like for like sort of player realistically. So I could still see him playing in the side, but the role's not the same as what we picked him up for at the start of the season. So here's another one that can also be gone. Number 3, Riley Bice. I don't think there's any surprise to anyone with that 9 on the weekend. Again, 600k on top of his head. The only reason he's probably ranked a little bit lower is if you absolutely need to hold a player this week with a lot of like forced trades as such. With the Richmond matchup is just quite enticing that you could probably trust him to put up a decent score. I think a lot of us held him for this long, particularly for this matchup. So, what's 1 week gonna do? Unless he gets dropped, which obviously there's every possible chance of that happening. Particularly how well the Swans are traveling at the moment. They're definitely potentially looking at changing up a few things. So, I wouldn't be surprised to see him dropped, but I also don't think it was his fault at the end of the day that they're performing the way they are. So I think it'd be a bit harsh. But if you had to hold someone, I don't mind the idea of holding a Riley Bice. But I'd prefer to trade him if you can with a 99 break even, and I said 600k on his head. So you'd only hold him for 1 more week and then you trade him out on his buy. Ideally, you trade him out this week if you can, because again, we're probably not trading out too many of these round 13 guys that we have in our side, unless you're potentially looking to jump off a red dot that you may have. Maybe a Cooper Simpson is a guy that I know a lot of people have. Maybe a Boxall, if you just want to jump off him, thinking he's going to be a job for the remainder of the buys, which is a highly possible chance. But yeah, I definitely don't mind jumping off Riley Bice there. His teammate and Caiden Cleary also falls into the same bracket with an even worse score with an 8 on the weekend after starting as a sub and then came on for 44% of the time on the ground with 4 disposals. Terrible score. He's just lower on this list because he doesn't really have a huge amount of money in his head. Like, dropped 45k on the weekend. Would have been nice if he stayed around that 500k, but you can't really do a huge amount with him in most cases. I know for my trades, he just didn't make it work, so I've had to look elsewhere. So I'm hoping that he gets dropped this week and doesn't play, then doesn't lose any more cash, and then we can look to jump off him next week when he has his bye. So that's why he's a bit further down, because I think he'll be able to use the money on top of these other guys' head a lot more effective than what a Caiden Cleary can be. And again, I think he does get a little bit dropped. Luckily, again, I said this before, but we probably don't need him in our best 18 this week. So we'll see how that sort of eventuates. Teams drop in less than 24 hours time. So yeah, we'll see how all that plans out. And finally, I had Levi Ashcroft. He is number 2 on the trade out list in a lot of teams this week. If you saw my team review video earlier in the week, I did have Levi Ashcroft traded out. But with some more recent news, I think I'll be looking to hold him this week in what is a pretty decent matchup against the Crows here. So I think he could go well, as he has all season pretty much. I expect him to bounce back. So I'm not too worried about what he will score. Yes, he'll probably take a bit of a hit in terms of his price, because I'm not expecting a 96, but hopefully he can hit a 70 or an 80 and not be managed this week with a sub again. So I'm looking to hold 1 more week, and then I'll evaluate next week and see if he goes again. So that is my top 5 list. I'll just quickly scan through a few others that you may have. Obviously, Zach Reed, if you're still holding on to him, can go. Sato Hooley is another one. Unfortunate for him with that hamstring injury is in the 2s. Like I said, with all these sort of round 13 bye guys, they can go. Obviously, with Boxall, I think with Jake McRae potentially back in round 14, that means Boxall's role is over. I think he'll be dropped again, which is unfortunate because he didn't really even get a chance, but that's a whole nother subject. So yeah, I don't mind jumping off him because he will be a red dot. Roll Marshall is an interesting one, given a lot of people traded him into him probably 4 weeks ago. He's obviously had 2 decent matchups, and he had 2 tough ones, and he put up probably subpar scores than what you wanted. But you got to expect that with these tougher matchups, right? I don't think his matchups from here on out isn't that bad either. Like, I'll bring it up here. Oh, sorry, go up, sorry. Where is St Kilda? So 2 tougher games after the bye in English and Darcy Cameron, which I'm surprised English is a bit of a tough matchup, to be honest. He's usually a pretty easy one. But the remainder of the season isn't too bad. Like, again, it's a couple tough ones in there, but ultimately it's not that bad. The matchups I guess we're really looking at for Ruckman, if you were looking to jump off of a Rowan Marshall, obviously you're probably jumping on Cherry, right? He's no longer got the bye, so he is the one you're looking at. He's got the West Coast matchup this week, which could be a massive 150. Freo next week again. With the two Ruckman there could be a pretty juicy one as well. And then ultimately the run isn't terrible, or it's about middle of the pack realistically for the remainder of the season, with probably 3 harder matchups for the remainder of the season, and a couple others as well. So here's the obvious one you want to jump on with no longer having to buy. I don't think you're looking at the likes of Gorn. You're just not going there. Where's his matchup? He actually has the toughest run of the lot. Look at his next 5 weeks, particularly. Collingwood this week, Port Adelaide next week is a decent one. But then it's probably a question, do you look to trade him out with 3 tough matchups in a row after round 15? So could you jump off him and then maybe go to someone else that could provide a bit of a better run? I've looked into a bit of English's run. Look at that. St Kilda, Richmond, 3 tough ones in there, but then ultimately it's pretty decent. Like, he's got a lot of green in there, but also a lot of red, so very up and down. I think you're not going to find the best run for the remainder of the season for any of them. But it could be a bit of a strategy to jump off these sort of guys and try and find that best run home later on in the season when it comes a bit more of a luxury. Then I probably wouldn't be messing around with my rocks so far this week. I think you've got Rowan Marshall. I think you've got to have a combination of the two of them, either so a Cherry and a Gorn, or a Gorn and a Rowan Marshall, or more Rowan Marshall and a Cherry, right? So you want some kind of combination of those 3, and I think you're just going to be happy either way, whatever you have. So I probably wouldn't be wasting a trade this week on that sort of stuff. I think you're better off upgrading your team else on the field, because you could leave yourself a bit behind the pack, whereas a lot of people will be looking to have completed teams after round 16 heading into round 17, where you may be one step behind there because you've sort of sideways a premium there instead. So it would be quite a luxury move in my opinion. I understand the FOMO of getting onto Cherry while he does have a good matchup, but it would have to be pretty significant to jump off Royal Marshall in what is going to be a very similar run right at the end of the day. So I don't know if I'd jump off there. So, but it's an interesting discussion for sure. Max Hall can go. I think he put up a decent 70 last week. He's been a very solid pick all season. He's done what he's needed to do, 550k. He's definitely one, if you do have him as a round 13 rookie, he's definitely one to jump off. So I'd be doing that with a lot of money on his head. Harvey Langford, he's been an awesome pick as well. 664k, that has been a very unique rookie. I know not many people had him. I knew I should have grabbed him when I had the chance back in the day. I said he was going to be a very important rookie, and I think that came true, right? He's put up some very solid scores, averaging closer to 70. Very good role as expected, and unfortunately got that shorter one with 36 on the weekend. So his time may be up. So if his money on his head can get you up to that play that you're looking at, he does have around 15 by, as I said. So yeah, he definitely is one you can jump off as well. He's probably not my highest priority in terms of, all these sort of other guys. He didn't get subbed or anything like that. So his role is still perfectly fine, and he could definitely bounce back this weekend. But he will start to leak some coin this week. So just keep that in mind when it comes to trading him out. Mateus Philippou is super unfortunate for owners with that too, and a shoulder injury. I don't know if he actually got ruled out for... Oh, we won't have it ruled out because he's not playing this week. I think he's looking like he'll play in round 14, post the bye is what the report said. But I think it's just time to jump off of him. It's been an unsuccessful trade-in. He hasn't had the role that we expected him to have at all. And he's put up subpar scores. And he's only leaking a huge amount of coin now. So I think while you can, jump off of him before it becomes too restrictive and he starts to get too low and you can't do anything with that. I think the buy is the perfect example to jump off him while he's got plenty of money on his head, and it's not that hard to get an upgrade from him at that 600k price tag. So I'd be jumping off him there, and I have encouraged my mates to do that as well. Stone, red dot can go. I traded him last week. Cooper Simpson's another example of a red dot that can go, obviously, with that injury. Xavier Lindsay, I probably think it's still a bit early. He still can put up a very decent score, and he still has a decent break even, still making a little bit of money. I don't think he's an absolute priority unless your team's in this optimal position where you don't have any of the guys that are sort of listed here as a trade out target. So I guess he can go, but I think more than likely you can hold him for the next 2 weeks until he gets to his buy and then look to trade him out. But we can obviously evaluate that when it comes to next week. I don't think I'll be trading him this week. Lawler was a huge trade out target last week, so again, can go this week if you're still holding him. Obviously, we've had a few bullets in the last couple of weeks, so no surprising there is a lot of delayed trades here and there. But besides that, I think we get into quite unique territories. If you're looking to jump off the likes of Nasiah, Sinclair, just don't. That's just very sideways and very... Yeah, I just wouldn't do it. I traded in Jack Sinclair last week, so it seems very odd. Kitty Coleman is another one. We have the unfortunate news that he is out for 5 weeks with, I think, a calf injury or a quad injury, one of the two, which is super frustrating. And yeah, this man just cannot take a hit at the moment. He's just constantly getting injured. So yeah, super unfortunate after only having him for 1 week, which he looked good, and then yeah, he obviously missed out in the last 2 weeks. So I'm looking to trade him this week. If not, it'll be next week, right? So we will move on from there. So trade-in targets. As you know, we always do line by line. I'll start with the rookies because I think that's pretty straightforward this week. In some shape or form, we are looking for a downgrade target. And I do think Tom McCarthy is the #1 pick. While he has not played a game yet so far this season, he showed a lot of promise in that with the Waffle game. I think he had like 19 touches and like a 90 fantasy score as a halfback there. Basement price 230k, a decent couple matchups heading into his buy. And yeah, mature ager, 24. We do love a mature ager. So here's just one you can easily jump on with the rest of us. I think 14k coaches are doing it so far. So yeah, I think he's the easiest one to go to as that basement price. There's no confirmation that he is playing just yet, but it's pretty highly expected that he will after that game. So yeah, definitely looking at him at #1. #2, I do Maric, come here. Kyle Lohman is #2. Just only reason I'm not a huge fan of this one. Obviously, I traded him in last week at that 350k range. He's obviously gone up a fair bit now, and you're paying 400k. If you're really struggling for downgrade options and maybe some others don't present themselves, then I don't mind people trading into this pick with a low break even. He looks like he's found some form and he's not super injured at the moment. He did have that bit of a scare on the weekend, but ultimately kicked 3 goals and looks like he's back in form. So if he can generate, say, 100, 150k over the next 2 weeks or 3 weeks, then potentially we could trade him out at his buy when he's a bit more elevated in price tag and get to that upgrade again. So it is a bit more of a hefty price. I typically wouldn't pay close to 400k for a rookie, but with the dire situation we are in at the moment where we don't have that many rookies, then I don't mind people jumping on this one. #3, I still think Johnson's an option. I know he only put up the sad 40, I believe. I'm going to find him. He's not in the top part. But I still think his job security is very solid. So 34 in 64% game time. Did get subbed out in that. But I do think his job security is very solid. And he's pretty much basement price. So I wouldn't be surprised if he finds his footing this week as long as he is named. And definitely can get past that break even and put up a very decent score. So again, if you're struggling and no other options present themselves, I'd be leaning to Johnson. I know a fair few people picked him up last week. 860 people are picking him up so far. And I've thrown in this last one as a bit of a discussion point, realistically, because Sam Butler has been named for Hawthorn tomorrow night, Thursday night, after coming back after 12 months on the sidelines with a broken leg. So He is listed as a forward, 364k, 22 years of age, and we know he can rack up the ball. You don't need to go far to his VFL numbers where he just absolutely racks up the pill. So I do have his summary up here in what he's been able to do in the previous seasons and obviously what he's been able to do so far this season. So he's played a couple games so far. What's that? 6 games, something like that. And in his last 3, he's gone 150, 135, 156, and 107. So he knows how to rack up the ball in when he can get the pill, right? So he knows how to do that. So I think he's a very decent option. He loves the tackle. He loves the spread for marks. It'll be interesting to see what role he plays in the Hawthorn side because obviously they're pretty set with their midfield mix. But with the Hawthorn not performing as well as that they probably obviously they want to be, I wouldn't be surprised to see them throw in a Sam Butler just to see what he can do because obviously the likes of a Dylan Moore is probably out of form a fair bit, so I wouldn't be surprised to see Moore spend more time forward rather than in the midfield and letting Butler go for a bit of a run through there. But his numbers aren't super promising in when he has played for the senior side. He's averaged 55 back in 23 and only played 2 games in 2024 for a 27 average. So it's an interesting discussion point and definitely one you could take a punt on at that cheaper price, assuming that he's going to be there for a little while. But I wouldn't say the job security is absolutely amazing because Nick Watson is out with illness this week, and you'd assume Sam Butler's come in to replace him in that sort of role. So job security is definitely a bit shaky, and it's probably one that I'd rather wait on and have a look and see what he scores, and then potentially have a stab at if he does well next week. So, but yeah, definitely an interesting discussion point if you were looking there. So that is the rookies I've got named. I'm not aware of any other rookies that are pretty much a lot of people are looking at. Caleb Mitchell, I just have no faith that this pick is going to be sticking around this week. Obviously, they lost pretty badly and they're going to shake up a few things. And Caleb Mitchell definitely could be one that makes way. Not that it would say it was his fault, but I expect him to swing the axe a fair bit. So, but if he does play, I have no issues with people trading him in. I just don't know him that well to say that his job security is one that I can trust in. It could very easily be a red dot for you coming next week, if not after the bye, as they start to get a few more players back. So I have no faith in the pick that he could be there long term. So it's just one I'm staying clear from at the moment. Campbell Gray is another one that a lot of people are looking at. Again, Noah Bolter playing this weekend, assumingly, definitely will change his role in some capacity because he's playing this key defender role at the moment in the defensive line. So Noah Bolter will definitely go back there, and does that throw him forward, and then does he start putting up 30s instead of these 50s like he's shown previously? I just feel like the cash generation is going to dry up very quickly, and he's not even going to reach 400k. So I just don't see a world where I'm picking this guy, unfortunately. Hopefully you can't hear my cat in the background just screaming his head off. I might quickly just let him out. Give me 1 second. Sorry, guys. Mid-interruption, as we do on here. There's no editing around here, so let's get back into it, though. So that is the rookies done. I will do the defenders because I think this is where a lot of people are shopping at the moment. Obviously, we've got a lot of defenders that needed to be traded out. So I will go with the most traded in defenders this week. And my number one, if you do not have the man Connor Rosie, he is by far probably the number one trade in this week. Maybe overall, because what he's been able to do so far this season, averaging 108 pretty much, priced at about 105. He is just absolutely racking up off the halfback. Got that newly sign on him as a defender, so you can flick him back. He's definitely part of the top 6 defenders for the remainder of the season, and probably within the top 3 for sure. If I had to rank them, it's super tough just with the way things are shaking up. But you assume the size in there, Ash is probably part of that top three as well. Whitfield is skeptical at the moment just with his role changing, but he's still averaging very well. So that's probably my top three. Rosie's probably fourth, and then you've got a couple others down the order there. So I love what Rosie's doing. Tougher matchup this week, but again, you're picking him for the long term now. No matter what, he's got an advantage that he has an extra game than a lot of these other defenders. So yeah, he's definitely one I'd be jumping on at that elevated price. Number two, Sheasel's getting a lot of hate at the moment, but I'm not reacting to it as much as what I have in the past because I was one that jumped off him pretty quickly last year when he had this role shift and we saw a very similar thing where he spent a bit of time forward and he had a couple bad games. But if there's one thing I know about Harry Sheasel is that he finds a way to get the ball, and that's probably his flaw. Like an 81 is probably his flaw. I wouldn't be surprised to see him obviously bounce back this week. He's got the West Coast Eagles, and I still think he's going to be part, or if not, very close to those top 6 defenders for remainder season. I know a lot of people are highly skeptical of that, but I think it's a very knee-jerk reaction to an 81 where he had one poor quarter. If he had one standard average quarter in that third quarter there, he would have hit a 95, if not hit the 3 figures. So I'm not trying to react too much to that. I still expect him to do really well. We know he can rack up the pill. He's definitely a fantasy gun for us. Still, 20 disposals and 8 marks is definitely a pretty solid stat line. If the ball spent more time in his forward line, then he probably could have got a few tackles as well. But it was Collingwood, who are a super tough matchup, as we know, this season. So I still think Harry Sheasel is a worthwhile stab in the dark. Paying this much for Harry Sheasel is definitely not a bad idea. So if you don't have him and you're looking to just get someone pretty solid in your team and you're maybe not too keen on a midfielder or maybe you need a defender, Harry Sheasel is definitely one I'd be worthwhile jumping onto with a nice pop matchup. Probably hits his break even, and definitely worthwhile holding for the remainder of the season as they have a decent run as well. Number 3, we start to get in a few cheaper guys, and that number 3 is Miles Bergman. If anyone's been sticking around, you know my thoughts of Bergman. I did start him at the start of the season, and it has been a bit of a roller coaster where I did jump off of him. But it potentially looks like I'll probably be jumping back on him this week after a role change, which has seen him in the last 3 average in the 90s. So it's looking pretty solid. I don't see that changing as well. Obviously, the Port are getting the likes of Farrell back this week, and Sin should be back, both available. So that's 2 defenders coming to the side, which is only going to strengthen that defensive 50 and mean that Bergman can spend more time in the midfield. The only question mark I have is what happens when the likes of Horne-Francis comes back. That's obviously another cog that's going to go into the midfield. In a midfield that they've already got a fair few guys in, Butters is in there. Horne-Francis, as I said. Wines, obviously got a few health issues, so there may be something going on there that we're not aware of just yet, but there's something in the background. Then obviously you got Drew as well. So they've already got 4 main guys in there, plus Rosie every now and then as well, and a few others. So they already have a pretty stacked midfield, so it will be interesting to see how that role develops. But I think paying what you're getting him for, 723k, about 72 priced at, I think he can easily push 90. As I've said previously, especially in this midfield role, he could be absolutely anything. He has a very similar build to a Dawson and a Dunkley, where he's an elite tackler, but he's also very good overhead, and he can get those marks on the outside. So I have a lot of faith that he is a very good option this week, and at that price again, it is definitely one that you could jump on if you're looking for a bit of a mid-pricer. So here's number 3. Number 4, I've thrown Riley Hardiman in this list because he's not really a rookie anymore, priced at nearly 500k. Yeah, you're paying a lot for him. So I just think you're paying for these other guys a lot more than you're paying for a Riley Hardiman. But I don't mind it as a bit of a play. Running through the buys, he can probably put up some decent numbers. Playing as that sort of main distributor role off halfback, sort of that Harry Shearer role at the moment, where he's sort of on the opposite wing to Caleb Daniel. And a lot of the time, Caleb Daniel is kicking it into Riley Hardiman from the kick in. So he's getting that +6 all the time. Hence the 10 marks there. So he gets it done. He probably can make another 100, 150k quite simply, especially if he starts putting up these numbers again. But yeah, he definitely knows how to put up a bit of a bad score every now and then. So I wouldn't be surprised to see it dry up as well. So bit skeptical. I typically don't like to spend this much on a rookie, but I can see the appeal that everyone's looking at. So I'm not going to stop anyone doing that. Nearly 5% owned already. So yeah, getting up there. Good matchup, as I said. Where it's at Hands Oval, so be an interesting ground, that's for sure. So we'll see how that sort of eventuates. But that is my top defenders. A few other people are trading into. Angus Clark, could you trade him in? I guess you can. I probably should have had him on my rookie list. I just completely forgot about him, honestly. I thought a lot of people picked him up last week. But if you didn't, yeah, can still definitely go there. 345k, -6 break even. Obviously, we're going to watch whether he's still named in the side. I do think he will be, just because he showed a lot of promise in that first game. Made a bit of a name for himself. So, yeah, I think he'll go well. He just needs to hit the scoreboard again to, bump up that score. So, yeah, I think it's definitely a worthwhile option. Obviously, there's a few people trading in the likes of Nick Martin and Max Holmes. Now, I don't like this. I haven't named them in here for a reason, because they have their buy coming up. Now, you cannot tell me that Nick Martin is value. He is probably overpriced at this stage at 1.1 mil. So in no world am I trading in a Nick Martin when I have another player that I could easily trade in at 100, if not 300k cheaper, that doesn't need to put up massive numbers to match that sort of output, right? So just say if you traded in a Miles Bergman instead of a Nick Martin, Miles Bergman probably only needs to go 90s to be an equivalent pick to Nick Martin for the remainder of the season, who probably goes at 100, 105 potentially. So, and you're going to generate cash by going Miles Bergman as well. So there's an advantage there. So that just gives you an example that I'm not a huge fan of trading in players that are going to have their buy coming up. Yes, I get the buy is still 3 weeks away, but we're also getting very tight in round 16 with buy players. So unless you've really stuffed up your buy structure and maybe you're light somehow in that space, and this is sort of a fix up to give you some more premiums in that buy, then maybe that's a play. But generally, you want to be trading in players that no longer have the buy, who are going to have more games. So I'm not a huge fan of that. Holmes is a little bit of a different kettle of fish, because he is a bit of value. I've spoken about, the good run he's going on, the form he's found over the last 2 weeks. Should have been a lot bigger, particularly last week with a bit of resting. Even, the week before that with a 71% on time on ground. He's due for a rest, and that rest is coming up in round 16, so he's trying to get through the next 3 games. He's got 2 good matchups remaining. He is a bit of value. I could see him definitely going another 50, 60k, getting to that $1 million figure, and getting priced at about 100. So if you're paying 95 for him now, you're getting 5 points of value. So, and he's someone that you could hold for the remainder of the year. So he's a little bit of a different opinion for me to Nick Martin, where you're paying overs. But again, still, I'm not a huge fan, just because, again, you're losing a game, right? So I wouldn't be doing that. Oh, sorry. Bailey Dale, sorry. I did look at this pick. I understand there's a bit of interest, but I feel like there would be no interest if there was no buys involved. So I generally try and stay away from these types of picks where the only reason you have interest is because of a buy, and you're just doing it because of it. It's all you can do. I'd be looking at the guys that you've actually had general interest, like a Bergman. Obviously, we had interest in him before the buy. So I'm not a huge fan of this pick. Have a quick look at his run. Obviously, the next 4 weeks, as we know, is pretty solid, and something that I'll bring up very, very shortly in the midfielders. But yeah, it could be a very short-term play, but then you're running into the situation where in round 17, if you want to jump off of him, it can be a little bit tricky because you're probably just finishing up your team. We're back to we're back to best 22, and we're back to 2 trades a week. So you're potentially going to be looking at wasting 1 trade to move off a Bailey Dale. Which, if you're in the position that you're in luxury upgrade season and you can sideways a Bailey Dale to someone, then that's great. I could definitely tick that off, but the way I see a lot of things going, I don't know how many teams are going to be fully complete then. Definitely could be proven wrong. I haven't fully looked at the top teams and see how they're definitely going, but yeah, it just seems a bit to me very short look of things. But again, he definitely could pop a pretty big score, as we have seen with that 150 couple of weeks ago, but he's not someone I generally like to jump on. He does drop these low 60s every now and then, and he's not been a very consistent player. He's put up 100 plus scores and only 1 significant source. So he's no way near part of the top 6 defenders, and probably not even in the top 20. So it's just not a pick I'm even interested in at all. So it's a no from me. Quickly scanning down, not going Whitfield, not going Ash. All these guys I've spoken about. No, I think I'll sort of finish it off there. Tom Stewart is definitely still an interesting one. What do you put up? 73. Yeah, you're not probably happy enough with that. So we'll move on to the midfielders now. So midfielders, obviously Tom McCarthy's still there. But Bontempelli is probably the number 1 trade-in target for the week, if not number 2 for me, just with Connor Rosie ahead of him at this stage. So the only reason I say that is because Marcus Bontempelli has Hawthorn this week, which he doesn't have a huge scoring history against them. Like the last 4 games, I think he's averaged in the 90s, only hit above 100 once. So I don't expect a huge score from him this week. Just a middling sort of 90 to 100, just with a bit of attention from a Connor Nash, right? But I think you're going to get the reward coming in the following 3 to 4 to 5 weeks when he has a bit of a run, where he's got St Kilda, who are a pretty decent matchup. Obviously, we know Richmond are. Sydney have been giving up huge points. North, obviously, as well, are in the top 3. So I think you're going to get a lot more reward in those matchups in the lead up. So, but we need a target this week, so you might as well get him now. Break even at 121 isn't the worst. So yeah, he could definitely hit that this week. And we saw what Nick Dacos was able to do against Hawthorn as well. So I'm not expecting anything ferocious from them. So I just think he can get it done. He can probably sneak forward a little bit and kick a couple of goals. The only little flag I have, which is probably a caveat to all of the Western Bulldogs guys, which if you look at the list, I've got 3 there in my top 3. Adam Treloar's obviously coming back, and we expect him to spend some time in the midfield in the near future. It may not be this week as he returns from injury, but as the season progresses, has a chance that he gets introduced back into that midfield, and then it's like, okay, who gets moved out of there, right? They've got 4 main guys going through that at the moment. My opinion is that Matt Kennedy gets moved out. He's the new guy on the block. While they're loving what he's doing in there, I could definitely see him spending a bit more time forward because, again, he is a very Mr. Fix-It guy, and he has been that for a majority of his career. So I think he gets moved out. But I wouldn't be surprised to also see Marcus Bontempelli be moved a bit more forward as a full-time forward, with the likes of Sam Darcy still out of the side for a little while. So they probably need another tall forward up there. So he could definitely fill that role. So I don't have a huge amount of confidence in this pick, but of the bunch, I definitely think he's worthwhile at the moment. But you could definitely take a stab in the dark if you wanted to go against him. But looking at his results, he hasn't dropped below 100 once, besides obviously that subbed game where he was on track for 100 quite comfortably. So got to go with the facts, got to go with the results, and all the results are saying to go with Marcus Bontempelli at his price range, decent run, and no longer got to buy. So yeah, he's definitely up there as my number 1 pick for the midfielders. Number 2 is a guy that I was heavily looking at this week in Tom Liberatore. I just think paying 100, priced at 100 for him, averaging 105 so far this season. Again, decent run. Same with all the Western Bulldogs guys. he's just so locked into that midfield. He's just one of the main cogs, and he's not going anywhere. I know he's got some concerns with a concussion. He's done that for however many seasons in a row, but again, you got to go off the results, and so far the results this year he's been absolutely killing it. Only had one poor score of 52 a couple of weeks ago. Besides that, it's been all over 85. Seven scores above 100, two above 140. He's a tackling machine in there. He does all the defensive work, gets the handballs out, and even spreads around for the ground for a couple of marks as well. So he's been super consistent, and I just think he can average 105 for the remainder of the season. He's done that in seasons gone by. So yeah, I don't think I'm super skeptical on this pick, and you are paying a little bit less than what he should average. So I think he's definitely a viable number 2. Number 3, I have gone Ed Richards, and the only reason I have him probably lower, just because he's Liberatore is a little bit cheaper, but also the fact that he is the number 1 rated midfielder so far this season, in terms of overall rankings and impact and everything. So there is a lot more attention going into Ed Richards than what probably comes to what you've probably noticed. So I wouldn't be surprised if we see the likes of a Windhager go to him in next weekend, and then obviously James Jordan in 2 weeks' time as well. So there's going to be times where that he gets attention in the coming weeks because he has been so impactful. So signing him up for 2 tags and then within the next 4 weeks just is sort of a no-go for me. But of the options that we have, he's definitely probably number 3 there for me. Just again with the run, definitely can do some pretty nice things. He's probably going to be close enough to top 8 midfielders, just with the way the midfielders are going at the moment. He'll definitely bump up his average as the season goes on, with some decent matchups obviously coming. So I think he's going to be close enough that if worst case scenario you have to hold him for the remainder of the season, and he can definitely be there close enough for you, and he's going to have a few ceiling scores as well. So yeah, I think he is number 3. Number 4 is a very interesting one in Adam Chera, because a lot of us came into the season as he is just a mid-pro, so he's going to make us 200k, go from a price at 70 to about 90. And that's just always going to be, we'll trade him out at some stage through the season. But it's getting to the point now that he's actually putting up some very viable scores towards the end of this spy and through the entire season, realistically. Averaging 97, put up 2 tons in a row on a 121 and 108. He's just doing all the right things. He tackles in the midfield, but he also goes back and gets plenty of marks in the halfback as well. So he's got a very nice role where he sort of just floats wherever he wants. So priced at 933k, roughly at 92. There is a world where he's still 5 points to 10 points unders if he can continue this projection, where he's gonna go well and continue to increase his average. So now that he's had his arrest, you could argue that he is going to be refreshed and he's going to be much better in the second half. Good run as well. If you look at midfielders for the next 3, it is very luxurious. So Essendon, West Coast, and North. 3 green matchups, but then does go into a tougher run following that with 4 of the next 5 with red marks. Orange ones, but he's definitely a viable option. It's just, is he going to be someone that you can hold for the remainder of the season? I don't know if I can answer that fully. I do probably have a bit more of a biased opinion because I have not owned him so far this season, and he's been a hard watch every single week just with the way he goes about it. Never seems to have an opponent. But yeah, I think with the options that we have this week, he's definitely someone that you could jump on if you're looking for a cheaper guy. Obviously, not wanting to spend up to those $100 million guys. He's 100k cheaper with a decent run, bit of value on his head, and a decent run. As I said, I've got to stop repeating myself. But yeah, it's definitely a viable option that you potentially could jump off at a later stage when we're in luxury season, and you can get him up to those top dogs fairly straightforward following that. So I don't think Adam Chera is the worst option. Then number 5, I had a more skeptical sort of pick because it comes with a lot of risk, but obviously the price you pay is fairly cheap. He was down there. I just saw his name. There he is. Sam Doherty. So he is priced at 785k. So super cheap for what we know what Sam Doherty can do. Obviously, we've seen him play in the twos for a couple of weeks, but he came back in round 11 and just went whack with 30 disposal, 5 marks, two tackles, and kicked a goal as well for a 112. Playing in that halfback role as we love to see him do, and where we've seen him be in the past. So I think from the news that we've received from the club is that, you know, Doherty has said that his best position is in the halfback, and Carlton have identified that that's a position that they lack in, and the options that they've looked at in an Ollie Hollands aren't really working. So it's a little bit skeptical, but I can see a world where Sam Doherty is now permanently back in that halfback position, and he's just going to go back to being the old Doc. Maybe not, you know, the days of being a 110 averaging player, but I definitely see him being better than what he is priced at currently, about that 80, right? He can definitely be closer to 90, if not closer to 100, with a decent run, as I said previously. I don't think it's the worst thing to take a bit of a stab in the dark for the remainder of the buys for the next 4 weeks. See how he goes, and if he, worst case scenario, it doesn't plan out the way it goes, then you can trade him out come round 17 when we're out of the buys. Probably makes your final upgrade, and then you move on, right? So I don't think it's the worst stab in the dark. So I definitely think it's a worthwhile play if you're looking for a bit of a cheaper guy, but you also do have a Miles Bergman that is a little bit cheaper than him as well. But maybe you already have him, right? So if I had to split the two, I'd probably go with the more safer option in the Bergman, but both come with risks at this price range. I will say Doherty has the better run for the next 3 weeks, particularly. So take it as you will, but I definitely wanted to take him as a bit of a discussion point because I do see some value in him. There's definitely, yeah, we know how good Doc can be. So I would not be surprised to see him be a massive trading target come next week when he absolutely kills it. The only one I had on my notes here is Sam Walsh was another option. But I just have no confidence in this pick. He has been shocking, and I encouraged people to trade him out last week when he was on his buy. So I wouldn't encourage anyone to jump on him at the moment. I'd need to see the role change and where he is now a part of that main midfield group again, being a top 2 CBA attender. Currently, he is 4th in line behind Cripps, Hewitt, and Chera. I'd need to see that flip for him to be part of that main mix, and again, can be that accumulator. So I don't see it happening anytime soon, so he's not part of my top 5, and I probably would not encourage anyone to trade him in at this stage. So he is probably overpriced as it is. So that's a no from me. I said this was going to be a quick one, but I'm still going for 48 minutes currently. So I'll quickly finish off Ruckman. Again, I already sort of discussed this, but if you're jumping off a Royal Marshall, the guy you are going to is Cherry. If you already have a Cherry and you're not keen on Marshall, Tim English is another option that I've looked at that has a decent run on the way home. Again, you're paying a huge price like you are for Cherry, but it's really only if you're super keen on jumping off a Royal Marshall that you're doing it. Otherwise, I would not encourage people to be trading in the Ruck slot this year. So for the remainder of the year until we get into luxury season. So that quickly summarizes it. I probably would not be doing that at all. But to finish off, we'll do the forward line, and then we'll finish off the video. So not many forwards to look at this week. I don't think a lot of people are shopping in this area, just with a lot of defenders being traded out. But when I look through the options that a lot of people are looking at, there's not a huge amount. So I've got Matthew Kennedy at number 1. Obviously, he's just come off the bye. He is probably clearly number 2 or 3 in the rolling. Definitely number 3 behind Martin and Smith. But yeah, he's just been really, really good. Look at his last 6 matches, averaging probably 110 in there quite comfortably. It's just unreal. He's playing a lot more midfield than what we've ever expected. Has been a great starting pick if you started with him. Again, great run, as I mentioned, with all the Western Bulldogs players. So if I could grab him this week, I definitely would. But I probably have a bit more faith in a Marcus Bontempelli to score whatever position they put him in than what I do with a Matthew Kennedy, with obviously the concerns with Adam Chulor coming back, as I said previously. So it is a lot to pay, but I think, again, they're really happy with what he's going to do, and I think for the next 4 weeks he'll be fine. So I think it's definitely worthwhile jumping on to at this stage. So he is clearly number one. Number two, I have thrown in Grind Myers in there just as another option that sort of falls into this, that their extreme value for what they're able to do currently and for what he could do for the remainder of the season, right? So he's priced under 90, and if you ask me what I think he would average for the remainder of the season, I'd say it's probably just over the triple figure mark. I think he could average 102. So that's 10 to potentially 15 points of value. For the remainder of the season, he could be a top 6 forward for the remainder of the season with what the role he's playing currently. So, and with the run, as we mentioned, with Graham Myers, with Max Holmes, he has a phenomenal run. The role is great. He loves to just go into the halfback at stages to get those +6s, because they trust him with his kicking ability to spot up those kicks wherever he's on. So they're always looking for him in all those moments. But that could also lead to him getting a bit of attention with how damaging he is. So I could see some potential matchups in the near future that he could cop some attention. But I think he's a viable option if you're really looking for a forward this week and you're keen on him. Obviously, he's been performing well, so I wouldn't stop you. Break even at 46, definitely going to rise up in coin quickly. So you'd probably want to do it this week. You can't leave it until after 16. I think he'll be too expensive at that stage. He'll be closer to that $1 million figure. And then you're probably paying a fair price for him, whereas you can jump on him now and then you're holding him through for an extended period of time where he can average quite well. So that's the only reason he's part of my top 5 here, and he's probably breaking my phenomenon of the way I think about the buyers. So yeah, he's definitely one I'd probably break that rule for if you can on him, and a lot of people are doing it, which is definitely a good option. So nearly 5K coaches are jumping on there. So, but that is my top 5 trade-ins overall there. So if I had to rank them all summarizing everything, I think Rosie's definitely number 1. Marcus Bontempelli is number 2, as I said. Tom McCarthy has to be somewhere in the top 5, quite simply, because I think with you doing a downgrade, you're doing a downgrade somewhere. He's the obvious one you're looking at. I have put the likes of Tom Liberatore at 4. I just think he's a very solid option, and I'm really keen on him. And then I'll probably throw in Grind Wise at 5 there as a bit of a sneaky pick as well. So that is my top 5 captains for the week. I keep going captains. I'm already in thinking about tomorrow's captains, but that is my top 5 trade-ins overall for the week. Just some final thoughts. Again, stay on your toes, be flexible as always through the buys, because again, as these players start to score, you may get a pop score that you weren't sort of anticipating, and then you can be a bit more flexible with your trades rather than trading in someone that maybe is a bit more risk. So for example, this week, if you're looking to trade in the Bergman and maybe you get a pop score from someone else that you weren't expecting, maybe you could jump off a Bergman and maybe just bank a bit of coin for next week to make some bigger trades, because you've already got your best 18 locked away. So just you got to stay flexible. The rookies are going to score what they score, so there's potential that what's going to happen. And we saw what happened last week, where it was sort of the opposite. We had a lot of low scores. So if you were flexible enough, you could have made your trades flexible around that, and you could have potentially come out better on the opposite side of things here and there. So, but quickly looking at what my trades are, updating from the other night. So pretty much all I've changed is obviously with Kitty Coleman being out for an extended period of time, I've looked to jump off him instead of the likes of Levi Ashcroft, wherever he is down here. because it just gives me better numbers this week. So, and I'm able to still do a fairly decent trade. So, I'm able to get Coleman to Bergman, just as sort of a straight swap. Maric to Bontempelli and Bice to Tom McCarthy. That still leaves me with 18 very fieldable options, with the likes of Lindsay, Clark, Moraes, and Lohman as backups. And again, I could loop between these sort of guys on the bench as well as they play. So keep that in mind, guys. Do play the looping game because, again, we have the buy players to be able to do that and the flexibility. So, yeah, try and maximize your points on field. And I will see you guys all for tomorrow's captains if you check that out. I think it's pretty straightforward this week. You got the likes of Cherry up against West Coast, and you got Bailey Smith up against the Gold Coast Suns. I think a lot of people will be doing that, but just to give you a few spoilers there. So, hope you guys have enjoyed. Have a good night, and I will see you all tomorrow. Cheers. Bye.